and welcome to Fountainhead, brought to you by WebEngage. Fountainhead is a consolidation of all of our education, ecosystem, and community efforts. As the first initiative under this umbrella, the Fountainhead Leadership Series aims to bring to you the best of industry leaders to share actionable insights, tricks of the trade, and to answer all of your nuanced questions. So ready to get inspired and entertained? Let's go.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So we're back after a bit of a break. I think we did a super large affair in Bangalore physically, so we put all of our energies there. And it was, in fact, a pleasure to have Ajinkya there as well as a speaker, but that was a panel, so we had a little less airtime with him than we wanted. So I asked him to come back on the show again, and then he was kind enough to accept. And what has changed from then to now is also the fact that they've raised a substantial amount of money, and the journey is obviously just begun. So thank you, Ajinkya, for coming on board. Very excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here.
So I think most people on LinkedIn probably already know that Ajinkya is a LinkedIn top voice, so I don't necessarily need to introduce him from that perspective. But and his story around how Wint Wealth has started and the fact that he's a second-time entrepreneur is also sort of in public circles. But I thought if there's somebody who's still new to the subject, maybe we'll spend a couple of minutes on quickly, going through your journey and background and Wint Wealth.
Sure. So I've done one startup before. It was acqui-hired. Then did a bunch of gigs at different fintech startups. Has been operating in a fintech startup ecosystem for 7 years. Started Wint Wealth about 2.5 years back, and enjoying the ride. Right. So at Wint Wealth, we are basically democratizing fixed income assets. So what we figured out, they are a great fixed income asset, but those are only for ultra rich people at 50 lakhs and above. And I could, because I was working in fintech lending space, I knew these assets and wanted to invest, couldn't invest myself. So thought I want to invest in this, and realized that if I want to invest, a lot of more people would want to invest. So said, can we start this at 10,000 ticket size? And that's what we are doing.
Awesome. So in the understanding I got from the whole platform, and it's just very tempting to invest, given Indians' temptation to find things which are better returns than FD, but lesser risk than equity. And that's pretty much where Wint is playing. So it's the love of Indians, holding on to their money in a safe enough fashion without exposure of equity. That's the origin of where Wint Wealth is now playing. And
Yes.
what would be your kind of you can measure of your current scale, amount of money invested, assets under management?
We generally look at amount of money invested and number of investors. So we launched about 1.5 years back. We have about 25,000 plus investors now, and have raised about 400 crores.
So a year and a half of operation and 400 crores invested, and it's an exciting journey that's just begun, right?
Yes,
Awesome.
yes. Long way to go.
Absolutely. So Ajinkya, I have a lot of questions. I did try to send across a list of those in advance, so I hope none of them puts you in a spot. But I picked this up from our last conversation where you had a very unique view on how customer acquisition cost, how market size, and how the recovery of this customer acquisition cost comes in. This is a WebEngage conversation, so I need to talk about CAC and lifetime value and those things. But that's where you had some unique points to make. I'd love to delve into those.
Sure. So, my understanding has also refined, right? So what we realize is we are running a vertical business. In a horizontal business, and for everybody's benefit, I'll try to define horizontal and vertical. So horizontal business is where you acquire a customer and try to fulfill many more his needs, and potentially this could be 10, 50, 100 needs. So you are heavily dependent on cross selling. In a vertical business, you are going deep in one need of one customer, right? So in a vertical business, it's very important that because you are not going to cross sell, so the dynamics plays out that your CAC should be low, but more than that, it should be recovered fast, right? Because you don't know how much you will be able to cross sell, right? So, and that's how we generally work. We try to recover the CAC in 6 to 12 months now as we are scaling. But in an early stage of growth, even if we want to do a very decent, very steady growth, then we have seen our CAC getting recovered on the first transaction, which is a great thing for us. But in general, beyond 12 months is a complete no for us. It should be around 6 months is what we try to optimize for.
So this would be how many investment cycles in your sense? Because the average ticket size is also quite substantial, right? Still.
Yeah, average ticket size per investment is about 50-60,000,
Hmm.
right? But these investors do a lot of more investments. Generally, they do 3-4 investments in a year, right? So they more like a median will be about, or average investment per investor would be about 2 lakh.
It's very healthy, and that no wonder you recover your CAC within 12 months. But is something kind of really causing your CAC to go high? Because to me, this is still a unique offering. Maybe you compete with the folks taking FDs and on one side and other kind of investment products. But what's really shooting up your CAC, if at all something
Actually,
is?
I mean, what we realized early on is like we have cracked one channel, but we have to crack like lot more channels because
Huh.
to build a
The pace.
sustainable business. And none of these channels are optimized yet. So like
Hmm.
CAC is really high. Like when we started with paid, actually our CAC was 9-10,000. Now we've gotten it down to, I guess, 4,000 ish, right? And we know we'll get it to even 2,500. This is a paid CAC, like paid digital advertising
So
CAC, right?
blended would be even lower, of course.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And your
So
LinkedIn is driving half your customers anyway.
yeah, that has been a great driver
Sure.
of, right? But idea is, I mean, like early on, we heavily relied on a lot of organic channel, whether it is LinkedIn or etc. But now we are making sure like all channels are cracked and optimized well. And in that
Hmm.
process, CAC obviously increases, and we are fine with that. That's why we raise money.
Sure. That's why you raise money.
Yeah.
So, that's where the question on the pace of growth and activating all these channels, because when you've raised money, now the kind of cat is out of the bag. The business makes sense. There is a degree of PMF that's established. And now it's time to put fuel to the fire and really go aggressive on scale. So, what's currently limiting your pace, if at all there is anything doing that? You can be
So
very aggressive or less aggressive, conscious choices, but how are you driving that pace?
yeah, I think what we are basically trying to deliver is alpha and fixed income market. So
Hmm.
the real crux is in delivering supply, right? No asset should default, right?
Okay.
That's kind of limit our pace because the pace at which we can bring assets on the platform without diluting quality of underwriting, without
Hmm.
diluting quality of asset, because to do a due diligence on an asset, whether and to decide to bring that asset on a platform takes a lot of time, right? And takes a lot of diligence also. So that it is not
Sure.
a tech solution that you can like
Yeah, you can't hack supply of high quality assets, is what you're saying.
yes, and we consistent, like we haven't even pushed buttons and saying let's optimize this, because in optimization we are pretty sure some kind of quality will degrade and we don't want that. So
Sure.
that is kind of limiting the growth as of now, and we are
Hmm.
fine with it. Although it's not completely limiting, it is
Hmm.
going
Hmm.
we are building, we are increasing capacity with a natural pace, right?
Hmm.
And we are not in hurry also कि एक साल में 1 million customer लानी है.
But hurry का सवाल नहीं आ जाएगा, because you've raised money now from a formal venture investors and their expectations on growth usually tend to be aggressive, right? So how do you manage that expectation?
No, I think we were very clear with how we are going to run this business, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of investors we have got, right? And like in general, we are more focused on figuring out fundamentals of the business, right? And
Yeah.
then that, like when even when you see hockey stick growth, right? That hockey stick growth शुरुआत में बहुत छोटी होती है, that is the time when
Sure.
you fix fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
हो गया, प्रोडक्ट के फनल्स हो गए, राइट, डिफरेंट
Hmm.
कोड्स हो
Hmm.
गए, कॉपीराइटिंग हो गया, डिफरेंट चैनल हो गए, रेफरल, पेड, ये etc. यू बेसिकली फिक्स देम फर्स्ट, राइट? एंड देन वो सडनली ग्रोथ दिखने लगती है. So patience तो लगेगा, and like we are very clear with our investors how we are building it, and while raising also, because this wasn't an angel round, right? So there
Yeah,
was
of
like
course.
there was a history how we are building business, right? Even before this round we had raised about 5 million and we are still sitting on 4 million of that.
Yeah.
So by nature we burn very low, like
Is
we
that
don't.
something that's coming to you because of being a second time founder now? A lot more seasoned, a lot more mature, a lot more calculated in his approach?
I think it's more of fun. Like, frankly, I did like lot of mistakes in for like when I
Of
ran
course.
my venture.
Hmm.
I didn't learn also well, to be frank, right? So I consider myself a good first-time founder now, right? I think a lot of it comes from a fact that this is the kind of business we are building, right? So it has its own dynamics. Let's say if you are building, let's say web engage, right? You
Sure.
can't have for 25,000 customers in 1 year. So every business has its own dynamics, and we are just sticking to that playbook, right? And
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
where it comes from. This has to be a low burn business. If you have to build this business, this has to be a low burn business. I mean, it's not a choice that I'm making. It is how it should be run.
And that's you've discovered because of somebody else's mistakes that have been made, or how do you conclude that this has to be a slow burn business or low burn business? Because fintech as an ecosystem, BNPL, the way it's scaled up in the last 12 months, it's quite crazy. Of course, has its own pitfalls, but I'm just amused at your very conscious choice that I have a large possible TAM, but I want to maintain my quality of supply. I want to maintain my velocity within constraints that it's reasonable, not insane. So, how do you come to this decision or stance?
Yeah, I think I like we were very fortunate to be backed by like 25, 30 fintech founder angels who have gone through
Acha,
these journey, right? And
okay.
who are always there to share their wisdom, right? So I've seen that
Hmm.
journey, how that progresses from, let's say, series A, B, C, growth, late growth stage, how that's funding round happens, what are expectations there, right? How the dynamic plays out, right? So, and it has like, and those learnings are kind of summed up here, and like it
Hmm.
is basically wisdom that is out there. I was lucky
You've
enough
just
to
been absorbing
get,
it,
yeah.
and now you're kind enough to share it with all of us, huh? So interesting. Now the question would be that you still have 4 million in the bank, and you raised another substantially large round, and this is a
Yeah.
conscious timing that abhi lena chahiye because abhi mil raha hai, ya fir abhi when you don't need it is the best time to raise, while you don't intend to deploy all that money quickly.
Yeah, I mean, so we were sitting on comfortable, but we like everybody in the, like, while it is very like people think that it was very sudden, it was well known fact within a at least founder ecosystem कि winter आने वाला है मार्च के बाद,
Sure.
right? So we were, and there was some incoming interest, so we said why not, like if we are
Hmm.
getting money, let's just get it
Sure.
and sit on it, right? So
Timing.
that was the logic, because like we generally operate at a 48 months plus runway always, right? So therefore
Wow.
हमारे 5 मिलियन पे भी हम यही कर रहे थे, अभी रेस किया है तो थोड़ा बर्न बढ़ा है, बट हम अभी भी वी हैव लाइक 50 months plus runway.
That's an interesting way to look at it. But do you see this as common? Because आप जो बोल रहे हो, there's 25, 30 fintech founders who are advising you, and that's where your learning is to operate with a 48-month runway. But is that common? Because if that was common, then we would have seen the kind of spikes in hiring and then layoffs and all of that.
No, no, so like a good student learns from others' mistake, right? So these founders made those mistakes, and they were great,
हाँ.
like they were very kind enough to share those with me, and like
कि ऐसा मत करो.
and obviously I like, and then I took a judgment call saying we want to operate this way, right? Because you are building phenomenally, like this is going to be work, like life work for us, right? For the, we
So your
don't
horizon
want,
is several years, huh? मतलब this is not like a 5-7 साल का exit. This is a लंबा horizon.
ये बहुत लंबा, मतलब खेलेंगे, बहुत लंबा खेलेंगे. So we don't want to put that future on stake for liquidity. तो मतलब जनरली वी आर लाइक कि डाइल्यूशन ज्यादा होगा तो भी चलेगा, बट कैश लेके बैठ जाते हैं, राइट? दैट हैज बीन जनरल फिलॉसफी. मतलब obviously we'll, as a founder, whenever that round is happening, we'll negotiate, try to
Yeah, of
get more.
course, you optimize the deal, but doesn't mean that you let that dilute your overall game
But
plan.
I'm not a founder who is very ownership focused, like,
अच्छा.
and that in general reflects, हमने ESOP pool भी बहुत बड़ा बनाया है, general how we
I
operate,
was going to get to that in a bit because ये जो पूरा FOMO वाला angle होता है और talent attraction वाला angle होता है, because if you are on your path to like a quarter on quarter 100% growth and all of those things, you start to be positioned like a rocket ship, and then people want to be a part of that rocket ship. So खुद का FOMO manage करना vis-a-vis employees expectation manage करना, because teams also want that degree of velocity in some sense. How do you drive this Shanti wala philosophy down the organization? How, across building the team, then maintaining the team?
हाँ, एक्चुअली शांति ऐसे नहीं है, वी आर प्रीटी एग्रेसिव, राइट?
Of course.
बट इट्स
हाँ,
वेरी
but
कंटेंट
यार
बेस्ड.
benchmark कैसे करोगे? कितना aggression enough है?
हाँ, नहीं मतलब इंडस्ट्री बेंचमार्क से ग्रो तो करेंगे हम, 3x 5x
Of
पर
course.
ईयर तो
Hmm.
करेंगे. वो
Hmm.
ग्रोथ कौन से कॉस्ट पे आनी चाहिए, इस पे हमारा बहुत ध्यान रहता है, राइट?
हाँ.
What CAC it should come is we are very pertinent about. Now, how you drive philosophy is very clear. Hey, like we basically tell people, in general, our inside agenda is key. We tell people that, hey, we'll not be dishonest with you. We won't be hypocrite with you. Every organization culture ले लो, rewards ले लो, सब जगह trade off होता है. ये perfect नहीं रहता. हम हमारे choices आपको बता रहे हैं. If you like it, this is the place for you. If you don't like, we'll help you transition. मतलब ऐसा कोई, there is no ill will also.
Sure.
So we are very clear कि we want to build a sustainable business. Like we like the revenue should be strong, etc. And in fact, if you see, I mean, like it's also good for the employees. I'll tell you why. Because if your valuation is too high compared to your actual market valuation, let's say public, if you were to go
Sure.
IPO,
Huh.
you the farther you are from that profitability or market valuation, the ESOPs का liquidity होता ही नहीं है.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
I know so many friends who are sitting on crores of ESOP, but there is no liquidity, and those
Yeah.
जिनके ESOP है, उनको कोई profitability नहीं है. Profitability नहीं है, the incoming investor will not want to liquidate ESOP because he'll
Sure.
say कि I push money in primary business, right? I wouldn't want to give secondary.
Yeah.
So, and you have to explain these things, and some people like it, some people don't like it, right? But we make sure we communicate well.
I think ecosystem maturity also is going to go through a bit of evolution. So now more and more people have पहली बार understood the value of ESOPs कि यहाँ पैसा बनता है इससे. Now there's another
Yes.
cycle जब पैसा नहीं बनता है. So there's an appreciation of long-term value कि हाँ IPO आएगा उसके बाद valuation नीचे नहीं गिरना चाहिए तो मेरा कुछ बनेगा. So all that mindset is evolving.
हमने नहीं देखा, हम बस बताते कि भाई this is how we are thinking, right? मतलब this is how we are going to operate. This is how our guiding principle are, right? And
this would have meant some interesting hard decisions also, right? You would have had to say no to some investors as well, and potentially some employees might have been rock stars, but they did not fit with this philosophy, and then they didn't come through.
हाँ हुआ है ऐसे, right? Investor के side पे, हाँ, investors I think are like understand that well. They would, because they have a portfolio approach, right? So they would want to bet on
incoming interest. I say you don't have to go on a roadshow to pitch. That's where probably you had a slightly simpler approach to it.
When there was incoming interest, then we decided and we went and
you went out shopping as well.
30 funds.
Acha.
Right, you are always prepared to fundraise as a founder, right?
Of course.
So employee के साथ हुआ एक दो जगह senior hires didn't join because philosophically we were not aligning, and that's fine, मतलब because वो हाँ अंदर आके गड़बड़ होने से अच्छा है वो आए ना, and good for them also, for the company also.
It's still early in your journey, but did you also have to let go of some people because of this philosophical change or approach?
Not really, not because of this.
Not
we
yet,
had to, unfortunately we had to
वो सब होगा, but still early days. But now tell me something.
We are very clear कि किस तरह operate करते हैं, क्या नहीं, मतलब we spend a lot of time hiring process है, ये है तो.
That's what I was going to zoom into. मतलब आप एक तो growth pace को manage करने के लिए आपने you mentioned this term or whole concept around benefits earlier, which one aspect was stock options and whatever people get. So Wint Wealth has a 17% ESOP pool after seed funding, which is quite credible and substantial compared to what industry standards normally are. Let's delve a little deeper into your people philosophy, and you mentioned this whole part around educating them about the subject before they come in. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, in general, I mean, we are heavily inspired by Netflix as a culture.
Right? The no culture, no rules thing, right? Yeah.
So we have a radical transparent side, in fact, to the extent people can discuss their salaries openly. Right? People can go question their manager, why did you give so much raise to this person, and why didn't you give me, right? So in general, we have told people, I mean, see, look, I mean, nothing is ideal, but we'll give you complete transparency and we'll tell you how we are thinking. We'll not manipulate you. You can trust on that. Then whether to stay here or not is your choice, right? But as long as you stay, we'll make sure that you have complete access, and so that you can make a rational choice. You should not feel that I was deceived, I was not told these things, etc. Right?
But do people necessarily make rational choices? Because what's the number of employees now that you have? Headcount?
About we are total a team of 90 people.
And 90 के scale पे आप manage कर पा रहे हो फिलहाल तो, at least it's not breaking.
नहीं, rational होता है कि नहीं, देखो वो I don't really think that anyone operates completely rationally. वो मैं भी नहीं करता.
Exactly.
हाँ, but एक होता है ना कि what people मतलब, and this is also from learning experience of founder. We have worked at different organizations.
Sure.
What everybody hates is hypocrisy. If you say one thing and don't do that, right, then it's a problem. If I come in, let's say join WebEngage, and while hiring me, you tell me, hey, these are going to be things, and if I see opposite things, I'm going to be disappointed, and that will that's not a good place to
put off, of course.
Right. So we make sure there is transparency. Some people will make rational choices. Some people have left. We think that they made a wrong decision. Who knows? I mean, right? So
yeah, sure, of course.
So
Yeah, but so
that
from the hiring stage, let's dig deeper into what is it that attracts people. So the philosophy of a long-term sustainable business grown sensibly is something that should attract a set of people, a breed of people who prefer that kind of thing. But you didn't mention the whole work-life balance also going for a toss. So motivations from monetary, non-monetary perspective, driving the most out of people while keeping this long-term picture in mind. How do you play this?
Yeah, sure. So we have actually two, like there is one customer excellence team, right? Where we have said there will be life work-life balance. For the other team, we have said, hey, the kind of business we operate and the kind of stage we are, the kind of resources we are, we can't really have work-life balance. And we
Hmm.
tell that upfront in the interview. If you're looking for work-life balance, we are not the organization to be at,
Hmm.
right? But we also make sure that people get rewarded for that. They are able to create generational wealth if they can create that impact, right?
Hmm.
And like and give that sensible, like it's all about, I think it's all about transparency and let people choose, right? I mean, not everybody is looking for work life balance. People,
Hmm. Sure.
what people hate is, if you don't give me work life balance, give me
At least
rewards
pay me
also,
for
no?
it.
If you make me work
Make it
and don't,
worth my while.
right, and I don't get any piece of action, I don't get, if you make generational wealth as a founder, you
Huh.
should make substantial wealth if I am
Something at
putting
least.
blood and sweat,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And like a lot of young people are ready to work and they
Sweat
really
it
have
out.
energy. They want कि भाई कुछ मचाते हैं, जाके कुछ करते हैं, like
Right.
right? So we like, and those are the kind of people we are also looking, right?
At this point, that's what you want and that's what you need as well.
Huh.
But from a benefits perspective, one aspect was the whole stock options, which can be quite meaningful and create generational wealth. Is there more to it?
Yeah, I think these are all secondary. The most important thing is like our general philosophy is we want to hire A players, right? And the best
Hmm.
people, their single most demand, whether they say it out or not, is they want to work with best people.
Hmm.
बाकी सब सेकेंडरी होता है, पैकेज सेकेंडरी होता है, ईसॉप सेकेंडरी होता है, विजन भी सेकेंडरी होता है, मतलब ये
ठीक है.
मतलब हाँ, people want to make sure कि I work among the people who I like, who I
Hmm.
respect,
Hmm.
like as a human being and respect for their skills craft,
Sure.
राइट? एंड वहां से इफ यू स्टार्ट लाइक एन इनिशियल हमने बहुत हायरिंग टाइट रखा था, ये किया था,
Huh.
और उससे थोड़ा थोड़ा पे ऑफ मिल रहा है, मतलब एंड वी कीप ऑन इंक्रीजिंग टैलेंट डेंसिटी. सो इफ योर
Hmm.
टैलेंट डेंसिटी इज हाई, दैट्स अट्रैक्ट द हाईएस्ट टैलेंटेड. ये all
Okay.
other factors, this freedom, transparency, ESOP,
Sub
ये
next.
are all hygiene. I mean, they are
ठीक है.
necessary but not sufficient,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? तो basic तो ये कि I should like we want to make an organization जहाँ लोगों को मंडे को ऐसा नहीं लगे कि it's Monday. Like we
Yeah,
want people
sure.
to look for, and that
Excited
comes
for Monday.
with all your benefits, right? While joining, you might think कि salary अच्छा है, ESOP अच्छा है, but that doesn't motivate you daily. What
Last.
motivates you
Hmm.
is whether you enjoy actually doing what you do.
Hmm.
And वो आता है कि whether you are doing what you love, and second, are you around people whom you like to be around? Do you enjoy working with them? Do you love hanging out with them?
But does this slow you down? Because what's your plan? What's the expected headcount at the end of a year? Because you've just raised money, so you have put the money to deploy, and you're 90. So what's your expectation on the headcount at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think by next 18 months we wouldn't cross 150 or max 200.
अच्छा, so you have the breathing space to हाँ शांति से धीरे धीरे करेंगे जितना मतलब you'll not hire in a rush here we'll spike up
Yeah.
and then we potentially have to rethink
Yes.
that.
हाँ, मतलब there
So
are
मतलब
positions that are open for a couple of months,
and
and
you're okay with it. नहीं
you
मिला
have
तो
to make
चलेगा but सही
something.
लेंगे.
Like otherwise, like you can't be saying कि मेरे को बेस्ट बंदा भी चाहिए, वो अभी चाहिए और
जल्दी
अपने
भी
पैकेज
चाहिए.
में भी चाहिए, सब ऐसा नहीं होगा, right?
So you're willing to wait it out to a certain extent because you'd rather be careful with your hiring and not. So what's your process like in terms of hiring? Do you also have a bar raiser team and all? How do you
But
like look at talent density wala angle?
yeah, talent density is definitely there, right? So there are a couple of things that we judge very differently. Is we look for spikes कि ये बंदे ने कहीं तो मचाया होगा, बंदा बंदी जो भी है, right? And like that helps us take bet. Second is we go heavy on ref checks, independent ref
अच्छा.
checks, right?
Hmm.
And बाद में प्रोसेस होता ही है, असाइनमेंट होता ही है, ये होता ही है,
Sure.
and still we end up hiring wrong people. ऐसा कोई मतलब
Of
it is
course.
not.
I mean, it's ultimately an interview process. It'll have its own share of limitations.
बट रेफरल पे बहुत फोकस करने से काफी अच्छा बेनिफिट मिला, ऐसा हमें तो लगता है. लेट्स सी.
Achha, sure. So, and besides, you're not like a massive manpower driven company. So, साल के
हाँ
30-40 लोग हायर करने हैं, that's still very manageable with the velocity that you need to operate. And referrals उतना हो
we are
सकता है.
very lucky. मतलब I have been in an organization which are very ops heavy,
Sure.
and like
हाँ, वो आपका choice भी था और somewhere I think outcome भी है in terms of
choice
the nature of business you're
choice
in.
भी वो fortunate. We are like it's more than choice, and I didn't think of the like as a founder you can't think of so many things while starting up. You just bother
Sure.
about problem statement. You enjoy working it. Is it do you think it is going to be big? Right. So fortunately we are in a space where we are very tech, like proper tech business है, right? तो ops का बहुत कम load है. तो
Fair enough. So tech team, is that a big part of your story in terms of the needs of the org? Or I
it
thought
is
this was
good.
more marketing and supply wala business. Tech is not like the most complicated piece of tech, or is it? Is there
It's not,
something critical there?
yeah, it is complicated to some extent because I
Hmm.
mean वो हो ही जाता है मतलब because if your core well because to reach so big audience and to make sure everything works smoothly and where the
Sure.
whole interaction is on tech तो वो tech हो ही जाता है main piece.
Sure.
Like if you look at 90 people team, we have 30 people in customer success, customer
Acha.
excellence.
Hmm.
And the 60 ka team, we'll have about 15-20 in tech.
Okay. And this,
Right.
matlab, your growth will need more tech, or where is it going to go from a team scale perspective?
I think we are like we would need 4 or 5 more tech folks, right?
Hmm.
And
But
then
that's only 10% of your new hires.
then remaining mostly in customer excellence because like
That's
product is not mature. There is
थोड़ा सा
ये
स्केल वाला एंगल कि लोग आए
हाँ,
कस्टमर्स आएंगे तो एक्सेलेंस वाली टीम लगेगी ऑफ कोर्स.
एडिशनल हायर में से 60% कस्टमर एक्सलेंस में होगा.
ओके,
फिर
फेयर इनफ.
थोड़ा टेक थोड़ा ग्रोथ मतलब वो जब बाकी
So,
सब भी हो.
as it's quite evident to the audience, you spend a meaningful amount of time on the people culture side of things, which is obviously very important for any organization at this stage to think about and think about very seriously. As you can notice that Ajinkya and do you have a co-founder? You don't have a co-founder.
No, we are 5 co-founders.
You have 5 co-founders. So what's the story like? How do you guys come together?
So I and Abhik knew each other. Like we were in same batch, same IIT. We organize each other's bachelor party. So very close friends. Abhik was also co-founder in my previous startup.
Isn't that amazing to work with that kind of a close relationship as a co-founder? That's a lot of
हाँ
merits to it, right?
हाँ मतलब पीस बहुत होता है मतलब
हाँ.
इट इज वो उसका वैल्यू ना वो मतलब आई कुडंट
Underestimate उसमें.
अप्रिशिएट इट अर्लियर क्योंकि तुम जब से गाली दे सकते हो मतलब गाली एज इन फ्रस्ट्रेशन निकाल सकते
Sure,
हो.
of course.
तुम्हें पता है कितना भी झगड़ा हो जाए कहीं हो कुछ नहीं होने वाला राइट मतलब
Yeah.
हाँ you can blindly trust that person and other way around also right. Sometimes I call अभी I am frustrated well I just want to vent out इसलिए मैंने कॉल की थी.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So then there is Anshul. I met Anshul while exploring this, and then we really hit it off. And then he joined as a co-founder. Shashank is our tech co-founder, right? And he worked with Abhik at Shop 101, right? So and like after my previous startup, I had one learning was very clear कि people ही होता है मतलब ironically in tech business people matter most. Right? Because इतना नॉन लीनियर होता है ना तो एक बंदा आके पूरा मचा सकता है या ब्रेक मतलब किल भी कर सकता है. So I started building relationship with people who could be potential co-founders. So that's when I met Shashank at that time only. And then there is Vinay, Abhik work and Vinay was also at Shop 101. So
okay.
And मतलब ये पता था कि अपने को बना. So I had when I shut down last startup, one of my key learning was co-founder अच्छे चाहिए. वो team matter करती है बहुत. We had last startup में co-founder अच्छे थे हम. But we are not complementing each other. Culture का issue नहीं था, but it wasn't a great team to bet on.
Sure.
Right? So then I didn't know कि मैं कौन से field में startup करने वाला हूँ, B2B SaaS करने वाला हूँ, क्या करना. So I had a list of 25 potential co-founder कि health tech में करना है, इसके साथ करेंगे. तो that was, and I started building really meaningful relationships, spending time and seeing whether they match on a value scale etc.
और 5 co-founders मतलब आप सोच के चले थे कि ये पांचों स्किल्स टेबल पे लगेगी बिकॉज यू सीम टू बी मेकिंग अ वेरी कॉन्शियस प्ले कि हाँ भाई हेल्थ टेक करना है तो ये करना है B2B SaaS करना है तो इसके साथ करना है. सो दिस 5 people in terms of what they bring to the table is very conscious in terms of complementary elements now or how is it structured?
Yes, very complementary. मतलब Abhik looks after Abhik is CEO who looks after investor side and all basic. Dubey is Vinay. His name is Vinay, but everybody calls him Dubey. Uh, he's great at marketing, growth, etc, branding. Right. Shashank is
Sure.
tech and Anshu is asset. Uh, in fact,
Supply creation.
there are two more co-founders who are going to join soon, right? So they've been
Okay.
like, so we're in fact we never started together. So first I joined
Hmm.
at when we hit first milestone, then Abhik joined, then
Acha.
Shashank joined, then Anshul joined, and then Vinay
Hmm.
joined, right?
And you have two
So
more co-founders joining after your what Series A is what you'd call the last one, right?
yeah, because they've been
Hmm.
helping us, matlab
Sure.
aisa, like, right? So uh, the
But मतलब at some point doesn't it democracy चलती है टीम में decision making कैसे होती है?
नहीं, so एक तो
आपने
क्लियर है
अपना
कि
ये
मैं
किया.
कैप्टन, हाँ, मतलब
Hmm.
डेमोक्रेसी नहीं है, ठीक
Correct.
है?
I would be
वो
surprised if you were able to be democratic. It'll be a nightmare.
हाँ, सो कैप्टन एक होना चाहिए, राइट? आई एम द
Hmm.
कैप्टन, राइट?
ये क्लियर है सबको क्लियर है.
हाँ, ये सबको क्लियर है, और ऑर्ग में भी सबको क्लियर है, मतलब
Hmm.
इन्वेस्टर्स में भी सबको क्लियर है.
Hmm.
Generally, we work is कि who is going to be the decision maker, and that
Sure.
decision maker is dependent on कि कितना रिवर्सिबल डिसीजन है.
Hmm.
अगर एक
Hmm.
महीने में डिसीजन रिवर्स होता है तो इवन इंटर्न कैन टेक कॉल.
Hmm.
3 महीने में होता है, then we would want a middle level person to take a call. 6 महीने
Sure.
के ऊपर है तो it should be at a co-founder level.
Hmm.
और अगर बहुत strategic call है तो I'll take that call. So
Hmm.
मतलब we don't have any, like, we haven't really disagreed on anything, because generally decision making में हम
Expertise
पहले क्वेश्चन यही
clear है.
पूछते हैं कि who is going to make that decision.
Hmm. Hmm.
Once you have that clarity, that's मतलब, and plus we are fairly, like, our skill set fairly complement each other, right? So
Yeah. वो by design था ना somewhere like you mentioned.
by it is properly by design, मतलब.
Sure. Fair. So a lot of topics are on the people side of things and co-founder equations. I would probably now want to switch to the other side, which is the business side, the fintech space, the ecosystem. You spend time across multiple aspects of fintech. I think you've done lending, you've done the M-Swipe business where there was a lot of payments collection wala process, and now you're doing investing as a line. So what's been your, let's say, common thesis across these companies, and what's the India का fintech landscape के बारे में, what's your overarching view?
एक्चुअली मतलब मैं लेंडिंग में ही काम किया हूँ पूरा.
Okay.
मेरा स्टार्टअप भी
M-Swipe
लेंडिंग
का
में.
भी aspect was lending only.
हाँ, आई वाज हेड ऑफ देयर मर्चेंट लेंडिंग बिजनेस.
Hmm.
क्रेडिट विद देम वाज आल्सो, इट वाज अ लेंडिंग रिलेटेड सॉल्यूशन ओनली.
Sure.
प्रोडक्ट वाज क्रेडिट स्कोरिंग etc.
Hmm.
हम यहाँ जो करते हैं वहाँ एक इन्वेस्टमेंट का एंगल है वेल्थ का, दूसरा पैसा
Hmm.
डिप्लॉय करना इज आल्सो लेंडिंग का एंगल.
Sure.
सो वो लेंडिंग का थ्रू एंड थ्रू है. सो आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड लेंडिंग.
Hmm.
इकोसिस्टम बहुत बड़ा है, एवरी, लाइक, सॉफ्टवेयर इज ईटिंग द वर्ल्ड, तो वो सब, लाइक, इफ यू टेक एनीथिंग 10 years में थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू चेंज, सो देयर इज अपॉर्चुनिटी इन एवरीवेयर.
Hmm.
ऐसा नहीं कि पेमेंट्स का खत्म हुआ अपॉर्चुनिटी, ऐसा नहीं कि लेंडिंग का खत्म हुआ है, ऐसा नहीं कि वेल्थ टेक का जस्ट चालू है. लाइक, अगर व्हाट आई रियलाइज, कि अगर रिपीटेडली यूनिकॉर्न निकलते हैं ना किसी स्पेस में,
Hmm.
तो निकलते ही रहेंगे, वो स्पेस कभी खत्म नहीं होता. If you look
Okay,
at,
that's an interesting one because generally payment space में जब UPI आया तब kind of it was like, dude, where's the MDR and where's the money going to come from?
हाँ,
The distribution है, but आगे पीछे lending करनी पड़ेगी.
हाँ, नहीं, मतलब आई एम सेइंग कि वो उसके रेवेन्यू मेकिंग ट्रेडिशनली रहेगा, वो लेंडिंग से ही बनेगा, इंश्योरेंस से बनेगा, वेल्थ मैनेजमेंट से ही बनेगा. उसके रैपर और उसका डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन का वेज जो है वो चेंज होके नए नए प्लेयर घुसते रहेंगे, एंड वो हर चीज में घुसते रहेंगे, नॉट जस्ट पेमेंट्स. मतलब इफ यू लुक एट 2015-16, राइट, एट दैट टाइम एवरीबडी थॉट ई कॉमर्स इज डन. अभी फ्लिपकार्ट 10 बिलियन का हो गया, ये हो गया, सब हो गया, खत्म, अमेजोन आ गया, एंड देन मीशो केम सडनली, राइट, एंड लाइक, एंड दे टुक दैट, दे चेंज की. तो ऐसा नहीं है
Yeah,
कि
I
कोई,
mean, one for the door open. So मतलब opportunity खत्म नहीं हुई भी बहुत सारी बाकी हैं.
हाँ, तो ई कॉमर्स में भी है उसी तरह. इफ यू लुक एट एनी फिनटेक, राइट, लोगों को लगता है पेमेंट्स इज डन नाउ. नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. वो कुछ निकलेगा, वो निकलने के बाद लगेगा अरे ये. सो
अच्छा, ये तो नया है.
hindsight seems very obvious in, like, insight seem
Of
very obvious in back hindsight, right?
Yeah, in
उस टाइप का
hindsight.
है, तो निकलता रहता है.
But what you're doing today stemmed from your exposure to lending as a subject across these situations because I also remember this was a personal experience where you're investing your money in, I think, your family's business where
Yes.
you're giving a stable return and your friends started to ask you, can I also put in money here? And that's where
Yes.
you understood this piece of insight. But rappers ka aapne baat kiya abhi. So if you look at the whole BNPL space, it's going through a certain degree of interesting time right now because of the wrapper itself getting a little complicated and the RBI not taking a very positive view of this whole situation. So from a opportunities being available perspective, given that you had a bunch of choices within fintech to consider and you chose this one, what was your let's say rationale on ये BNPL और ये सब जो बाकी spaces है, I would say in terms of lending itself, ये जो छोटे ticket वाली lending होती है, what people want to do with financial inclusion, so to speak. Did you have a strong stance on the thesis of these industries कि ये क्या होगा अगले 5 साल में, बड़ा होगा नहीं होगा, या क्या लगेगा इसको बड़ा करने के लिए?
हाँ, so देखो, मतलब BNPL I didn't come across that problem statement. मतलब I like so when I was starting, my criteria was whether I can relate to it. When you are yourself a user of that problem, na, you're facing, it is very easy to
It's easier to solve.
predict कि ये चलेगा नहीं चलेगा, इसमें क्या iteration लगेगा, what is actually, वो emotional पूरा जर्नी होता है अंदर किसी भी प्रोडक्ट को, प्रॉब्लम को फेस करके उसका सॉल्यूशन वगैरह. इफ यू आर, सो आई वाज वेरी क्लियर कि व्हाट लाइक जो मुझे चाहिए मैं बनाऊंगा. सेकंड, आई शुड बी एबल टू कनेक्ट विद दैट प्रॉब्लम इमोशनली, मतलब मेरे हर प्रॉब्लम में सॉल्व नहीं करूं. थर्ड, विल इट बिकम बिग. एंड फोर्थ क्राइटेरिया आई हैड इज दैट अ हार्ड प्रॉब्लम टू सॉल्व.
Okay.
इज हार्ड होता है ना, तो itself is hard, so you will face less of a competition, and उधर ज्यादा लोग आते नहीं है. And मतलब because of my working experience and I had learned कि जो भी कि अंदर का प्रॉब्लम तुम सॉल्व कर सकते हो कुछ भी. If I have to build, if I have to walk up to the Everest, I will do it. But किसी दूसरे करने पे डिपेंडेंट है तो वो नहीं चाहिए हेडेक, right? So
sure,
when it's a hard problem, it's very difficult to solve from inside, right? In our case, it is to track supply on scale and making sure it delivers. That's a very hard problem to solve. And so I like this problem as a hard problem and could see immediately कि ये लोगों को अच्छा लगता है, ये लगता है, and started working. But ऐसा बहुत ज़्यादा, so when I started, when I thought कि मुझे अभी वापस startup करना है, I had 5-6 problem statement in mind. So I didn't want to be emotionally committed to something without.
That's what I was going to get to, कि आपने logically कैसे पहुंचे कि ये करना है, बाकी सब नहीं करना है.
नहीं तो करते गए 4-5 पे प्रॉब्लम पे, ये इस पे ज्यादा जमने लग गया तो डिग डीप करते गए और वो होता गया.
What were the other four? That did it just fade away because you got more excited about this, or was there a logical closure कि यार ये वाला नहीं करते हैं इसलिए for this reason? That's what I was going to ask you, that you started with 5-6, what are the other 5 and how do you decide yes or no about those?
हाँ नहीं, so I had this 4-5 problem stated in mind. Then I started to talking to some VC analyst.
Sure.
So right, to get a sense कि TAM कहाँ है, किधर बड़ा बिजनेस बन सकता है, what are their thoughts. VCs are great at pattern making, and generally trend क्या है, ecosystem TAM क्या है, and realize ये यहाँ अच्छा खासा कुछ दिख रहा है. अदर प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट में उतना क्लैरिटी नहीं आ रहा था कि ये कितना बड़ा बनेगा.
Fair enough. But TAM बड़ा दिख रहा है तो फिर that's where you had earlier mentioned competition वाला angle, and I was going to wait for your remaining 3 ideas. So generally across the ideas you figure this is the one with the largest TAM potential from a VC angle and potentially an attractive space for an investor to also get involved. So if this is an obvious opportunity for somebody like you, isn't this also obvious for more people? But you said it's hard. So what is it going to take for somebody else to replicate or try to enter the same space, and will it expand the category for you or will it become a threat?
ऐसा है कि मतलब इसमें ना एक 2 स्किल सेट बहुत कोर में चाहिए. एक तो B2C स्किल सेट आपका स्ट्रांग होना चाहिए, DNA. सेकंड, फाइनेंशियल इंजीनियरिंग और जो फाइनेंशियल एसेट का नॉलेज है. सो दीज आर वेरी टेंजेंशियल स्किल सेट. सो फॉर समवन टू बिल्ड अ को-फाउंडिंग टीम where both skill set are kick-ass is very difficult. वो 2 ifs का ये आ जाता है. That's what that's what makes it hard.
That's what makes your system unique, and also, let's say, that's your moat, so to speak.
Yes, and now we are building different layers or moat on that. But as a starting key, for someone to assemble that kind of a team is itself difficult. Strong on and really strong on both sides, right?
The DNA and core skill set as a moat is a very interesting thing to look at. It's a very well thought out play then, right? Because it's very defensible in some sense.
नहीं था, to be frank. ये सब मतलब learning आती है. So fortunately we had lot of angels backing, right? तो वो learning है ना, वो conversation, quality of conversation से ही तुमको बहुत सब चमकता है कि how to build team and.
Yeah, but now you're a second time founder, इसलिए आप वो सब सुन रहे हो. First time founders को जितनी advice मिलती है आधी तो reject कर देते हैं ना. मतलब you don't listen to everything very easily in the first time.
हाँ, हो सकता है. मतलब ये भी कि जब ठोकर खाई तो पता कि I can be.
ये सब सुनने है, सब नहीं सुनने है.
Wrong, right? I've been terribly wrong, so I know कि I can be wrong again. So I'm more open to feedback.
Wisdom from the world.
Absolutely, हो सकता है.
So अभी I'm just going through the list of questions I thought about. So runway का आप बात कर चुके हो, और design on growth marketing I think was one aspect which I thought we'll touch upon. So what's your people setup on growth, retention, data setup, analysts, and how frequently does it appear on your radar to be watching these numbers? I understand you have a co-founder who looks at the subject, but you would also be paying a certain amount of bandwidth to this yourself, I would imagine. So how does that org design look like, and how frequently do you care about this?
Yeah, no, I mean, till now we were like looking at basic, like lights on wala philosophy. Now we have clearly defined product roadmap, retention numbers, etc, and we track it monthly, right? And we have dedicated like kind of people working on that problem. So it is slowly, it is like we will start focusing it on now. But like कोर यही है कि तुम अगर अच्छा प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर रहे हो ना उसमें, लाइक अगर वो जैसे हमने रिटेंशन पे फोकस नहीं किया था पहले, फिर भी हमने जितना एक्सपेक्ट किया था उससे ज्यादा ही हुआ. अगर वो सही प्रॉब्लम पकड़ते हो ना तो वो ये बहुत सारी चीजों पे तुमको हर चीज पे काम नहीं करना
कॉन्शियस एफर्ट
पड़ता,
नहीं भी मारोगे तो चल जाएगा.
वो हो जाता है बिकॉज यू आर एक्चुअली सॉल्विंग समथिंग मीनिंगफुल.
But that you discovered intuitively instead of with data, because आधे लोगों को शायद ये भी, how do you discover that you're solving something meaningful? Was it customer interviews, or what is your gut feeling, or how did you decide that ये सही है? Because
एक उस
when you launch something तब तो अपने दिमाग से था, but the first
हाँ
1,000 customers when they come in, then that teaches you a lot about your own business in some sense. So at what
नहीं,
point?
in fact before committing we had at least spoken to 100 plus people US,
अच्छा,
right? And we are pitching this solution. We didn't even had formed the company,
sure.
right? And अगर कोई बोलता है हाँ मैं कर दूंगा तो मैं उसको पूछता चेक दे दे मुझे. कंपनी तो थी नहीं, बट आई वाज जस्ट चेकिंग कि यार इज इट अ एक्चुअल
Serious है
सीरियस
क्या?
प्रॉब्लम.
सर्वे
एक्चुअली
नहीं है सिर्फ.
हाँ एक्चुअली कलेक्टेड 10-15 चेक्स. आई वांटेड
And
टू बी डेड
that
श्योर.
gave you that confidence कि ये सही है, प्रॉब्लम तो सही है.
प्लस बहुत सारे लोग पता थे जिन्होंने बोला था कि मुझे इस अपॉर्चुनिटी में इन्वेस्ट करना है. मैं खुद रिलेट कर पा रहा था उससे. तो बट वी स्टिल बिल्ड अ लॉट ऑफ एविडेंस बिफोर
Of course.
सेइंग कि लेट्स डू इट.
That's a very patient exercise ना, एक आइडिया के बारे में एक्साइटेड हो, उसको इतना फाउंडेशन लेवल पे चैलेंज करके वैलिडेट करना कैन टेक अ लॉट ऑफ.
हाँ हाँ, मतलब 10-20 साल का तुम्हारा काम करने वाले थे, 1 साल लेट करोगे तो कोई होने नहीं वाला, राइट? इनफैक्ट
दैट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग वे टू लुक एट लाइफ. हां, 20 साल कर रहा है तो 1 साल बाद होगा तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है.
बिकॉज व्हेन आई जॉइंड एमस्वाइप, राइट, तब मेरा ये हुआ था कि एक दो स्टार्टअप में काम किया था और सब दोस्तों ने किया था, तो पता था कि यार अगर अच्छा प्रॉब्लम पकड़ेंगे ना सॉल्व तो कर लेंगे, बिकॉज हसल करना आता है, अभी कनेक्शन है, थोड़ा पता है कि किस तरह ऑपरेट करना है. सो वी सेड कि द व्हाट मैटर्स नाउ इज पिकिंग अप राइट प्रॉब्लम. सो and we didn't want to be committed to one problem emotionally, so then we decided ki until we find 100 problems, I will not even think of one line of solution.
Okay.
एंड एक्सेल शीट पे 100 डालने का एम से चालू किया. 20 तो इमीडिएटली निकला है, बट उसके बाद हर दिन एक प्रॉब्लम ढूंढने में फट जाती थी. इट टुक अस 3 months to just reach 100 problems.
बट ये बहुत मतलब it's not normal, right? So that's why, in fact, ये मैंने आपके पिछले इंटरव्यू में सुना था. That's why I thought I'll title this session the unusual fintech playbook, because I don't know if people are able to do this कि यार मुझे इस प्रॉब्लम के बारे में बहुत एक्साइटमेंट है, बट रुक जाओ, पहले सॉल्व लिख लेते हैं और उसके बाद इस पे काम करेंगे if at all.
हाँ, then we started categorizing it कि इसमें हमको कितना कनेक्ट बैठ रहा है. Do you think TAM is large? Do you think this is a hard problem?
And you were doing this with the co-founders because टीम पहले बन चुकी है, काम बाद में डिसाइड होएगा, ऐसा?
नहीं,
Who are you doing this with?
नहीं, I made it a open project. I said जो भी मुझे मिलता था, जिसको भी स्टार्टअप करने की इच्छा, मैं उसके साथ शेयर करता था. Said you can contribute, और कोई भी प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट उठा के बिल्ड भी कर दो, कि ऐसा कुछ नहीं कि ये मेरे ओनरशिप है कि मैं प्रॉब्लम लिख. So and that helped me. वो जो 25 लोग का ग्रुप था, सबके साथ हमने शेयर कर दिया. And everybody I met, if I had met you, I would have opened it up for you also. तब ऐसा था कि भाई ये करते हैं. Even today anybody ask, I share that sheet. तो मतलब हाँ, रियलाइज हुआ था कि
उसमें बहुत सारा एनालिसिस भी कर रखा है इस चीज पे कि भैया कितना बड़ा टाइम है, ये सब वो सब. तो यार दैट माइट जस्ट बी अ गुड स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट फॉर अ बंच ऑफ पीपल हु आर लुकिंग टू स्टार्ट अप, बट येट टू बी रैशनली, आई थिंक मतलब वो चॉइसेस रैशनल होना थोड़ा मुश्किल होता है ना. यूजुअली एंड अप बीइंग इमोशनली अटैच्ड टू द प्रॉब्लम यू ट्राइंग टू सॉल्व.
हाँ नहीं, सो यू शुड
जजमेंट एज वेल.
So you should use rationality to make sure you don't get attached to wrong problem, and then you should wait for yourself to get emotionally attached to some problem.
जो सही है उसके साथ अटैच हो जाओ.
हाँ, अटैच तो होना ही पड़ेगा, राइट? नहीं तो मजा नहीं आएगा.
हाँ, अगले 20 साल गुजारने उसके साथ.
हाँ.
तो मतलब आपका जो पेस ऑफ वेलोसिटी था, विंटर आने वाली है 1 साल से पता था, एंड यू वर ऑपरेटिंग एट अ सर्टेन स्पीड इन टर्म्स ऑफ द मनी यू वर बर्निंग 48-50 मंथ्स का रनवे. You continue to maintain the same 48-50 months का runway even with the new money raised.
Yeah.
So इसमें as far as let's just say the visibility of surprise elements is concerned, मतलब contingency वाला जो पूरा एंगल होता है कि हाँ इसके लिए क्या सोचा उसके लिए क्या सोचा, how do you factor for that risk in your business planning जब जनवरी के बारे में सोचते हो?
मतलब जितना मिटिगेट कर ही लेते हैं तो वो सब बिजनेस प्लान में आ ही जाता है, राइट? उसके बाद भी कुछ रिस्क कैरी करने ही पड़ते हैं, मतलब इट्स वो अल्टीमेटली स्टार्टअप है, राइट? तो बिजनेस, इवन अ लिस्टेड इक्विटी बिजनेस जिसका प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी इट हैज इट्स ओन रिस्क, तो
Sure.
कंप्लीट डिस्क नहीं होगा, बट ठीक है जितने मेजर हमें एरियाज दिखते हैं, राइट? एंड देन मेंटेनिंग लॉन्ग रन विद दैट एक्चुअली टेक्स केयर ऑफ एनी अननोन रिस्क,
A
इफ
lot of
एनीथिंग,
things.
राइट?
So I ask you that because obviously you made this visible to आज world की Indians को इस asset class से बहुत प्यार है और यहाँ पे जगह है काम करने की. There is a possibility at the right time with some of these larger guys who anyway have large distribution for their investing products to get into your category. So how do you deal with that? How do you plan for that? How do you prepare for that?
I think मतलब they don't have ambition, most of them are our angels, right? So
अच्छा तो fintech वाली है, but nothing for them legacy ecosystem.
लेगेसी वालों से होना बहुत मुश्किल है, मतलब
अच्छा बोलो सप्लाई बहुत हार्ड है इसलिए क्या which the hard part is what the combination of skills that you brought to the table.
हाँ, yes, there are teams who are good on one side or other side,
Hmm.
but not good on both. लेगेसी वालों से इन जनरल होना बहुत मुश्किल है कि मतलब वो होता क्या है कि it is not never evident, so I call it irrational rationality. If I
Okay.
sit on day one and say कि how rationally I cannot tell you that this is going to be a $1 billion business.
Hmm.
I have to believe it irrationally, and my logic is कि अरे बहुत सारे लोगों ने किया है तो हम भी फिगर आउट कर लेंगे.
Hmm.
वो कन्विक्शन लेगेसी बिजनेस को लाने के लिए बहुत टाइम, वो बहुत
बहुत
इम्पॉसिबल
सारे
है.
ऑर्ग स्ट्रक्चर्स लग जाते हैं, बहुत सारे अप्रूवल
हाँ,
लग जाते हैं, कमिटी लग
वो
जाती है.
पहले किसी कंसल्टेंट को बिठा के बोलेंगे टाइम फिगर आउट करो, वो
Hmm.
पोजीशन करो, वो जो लाइक टिपिकल एमबीए स्टाइल जो होता है ना,
Hmm.
एंड देन दे विल हैव देयर ओन मेंटल मॉडल्स, बायसेस, अजम्पशंस. उससे निकलना बहुत मुश्किल होता है.
मतलब जनरली आप बोल रहे हो टू लेट्स से रैडिकल बोलो, इनोवेटिव बोलो फॉर अ लार्ज गाय टू काइंड ऑफ मेक मूव्स ऑन दिस इजीली, उसको जितना वक्त लगेगा उतना में आप बहुत आगे पहुंच चुके होंगे.
हाँ, उसका ब्यूरोक्रेसी तो अभी और बाहर है, मतलब
वो नेक्स्ट लेवल प्रॉब्लम है. पहले आइडिया पे कन्विक्शन बिल्ड कर ले, फिर somebody has to be such a strong champion.
इन लोग these like incumbents, when they know something is going to be big, they can't still execute on it because of bureaucracy when they have conviction and everything. तो ये तो
बड़ा तो
बहुत
अभी 400 करोड़ के इन्वेस्टमेंट पे बैठे हो, जब 4000 पे हो गए तब किसी के तो रडार पे आएगा ही, मतलब बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली दिस इज अ मार्केट शेयर बैटल और नॉट, बिकॉज यू आई रिमेंबर दिस सेड दिस की मार्केट बहुत बड़ा है, अभी फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
नहीं आएगा आएगा, ऐसा नहीं होता. बहुत बड़ा होता है तो बहुत लोग भी उसके पीछे रहते हैं, राइट? मतलब
हाँ.
मार्केट तो मतलब अब वही ऑपरेट करना स्किल सेट है, राइट? कि वही फाउंडिंग टीम का ये है, वही उसी स्टाइल से मोड बिल्ड कर रहे हैं. वी आर क्रिएटिंग डिफरेंशिएटेड सप्लाई, वी आर इनोवेटिंग अ लॉट ऑन डिफरेंट फॉर्म फैक्टर्स. तो मतलब हम जब
मतलब is
चार
there a exclusivity to supply in some sense that you can command because
ये
you're not
वी आर
large enough yet?
क्रिएटिंग दैट एक्सक्लूसिविटी स्लोली रैपर बिल्ड कर रहे हैं. लेट्स से अभी एक बॉन्ड है तो वी आर फिगरिंग आउट हाउ कैन आई ऑफर बुके ऑफ 10 bonds at 10,000 rupees. तो बहुत ज्यादा मतलब हम भी बिल्ड करते रहेंगे, राइट? तो
And so it's not a figured out problem yet, as I understand. There's a lot of figuring out on the supply side also कि इस asset class को अगर बढ़ाना है तो, because you mentioned that this is already available to the HNI side of the equation, but these assets are not available to the retail audience, so to speak, and that's what you're doing. तो सप्लाई बढ़ाना काम था, मतलब सप्लाई क्रिएट करना था या सप्लाई को ऑर्गेनाइज करना था इस तरफ से?
सप्लाई को ऑर्गेनाइज, सप्लाई है, मार्केट बहुत बड़ा है.
इनफ है.
हाँ, तो वो ऑर्गेनाइज करना, उस पे रैपर बिठाना, उसको ढंग से पैलेटेबल बनाना रिटेल के लिए, ये सब काम है. एंड ये
बट
क्या
वो
कि
वैसा नहीं कि प्लेबुक पे, सॉरी प्लीज.
हाँ, इसका टाइम बहुत ज्यादा रहता है. टैट इवन लाइक वी हैव इमेजिन्ड वन प्रोडक्ट, बिकॉज ऑफ रेगुलेशन ईटीसी इट इज गोइंग टू टेक अस 9 to 12 months टू लॉन्च.
And you have to play that horizon because that's the only way to do it.
हाँ. सो अभी जो हम नेक्स्ट सेट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट लॉन्च कर रहे हैं वो 12 महीने के बाद लॉन्च होगा. वो प्रूवन 18 से 24 महीने में होगा. तब तक हम दूसरा उसको ऊपर एक लेयर बिल्ड करते रहेंगे, राइट?
मतलब बहुत पेशेंस चाहिए लाइफ में, क्लियरली.
हाँ, एंड ये मोड भी है, लाइक
हाँ, श्योर, nobody else can come up with the product quickly.
हाँ, और उसको जब इस पे लाइक nobody takes that bet unless someone else is prove it. जैसे even we look at like a lot of adjacent plays and say कि यार इसको एक बार इनको तो प्रूव करने दो, फिर हम देखते हैं उसमें क्या करना है, राइट? तो तब तक हम आगे बढ़ चुके होंगे, और यही मतलब अभी ये क्या बहुत ज्यादा प्रूवन नहीं है, तो प्ले आउट होगा तो पता चलेगा कि व्हाट इज राइट व्हाट इज रॉन्ग।
मतलब कैटेगरी क्रिएट कर रहे हो एक जगह, तो ऑब्वियसली एविडेंस उतना ही मिले जितना आपने खुद से कलेक्ट किया है. देयर इज नॉट अ लॉट ऑफ एक्सटर्नल एविडेंस ऑन द सप्लाई और दिस होल इक्वेशन. But clearly a very patient journey, so to speak. But on one side, you have this, 20, 40 year horizon of doing this. On the other side, you're talking about a very, let's say, non-work-life balance wala lifestyle. So this would mean what? How does life look like at Wint?
No, I think like we will, ऐसा नहीं कि for a lifetime will not do work-life balance.
Achha.
At some stage, org will be stable. Some roles will offer work-life balance, some will not. It ऐसा नहीं होगा कि मतलब if I like I have plans, at least I have ambitions, I continue as a CEO. Sure. अगर CEO हो किसी बिजनेस को, उसका work-life balance नहीं होता है, right? To expect that also is also like a foolish.
वो चाहिए था तो आप शायद CEO ना बनते to begin with.
हाँ.
What I was trying to understand was, the hustle culture usually can operate all right with a certain growth velocity. बोल लो चाहे destination बोल लो, goal बोल लो कि quarter and quarter ये सब चलने वाला है. But your game is a multi-year game. You're talking about products that will be launched in 12 months. So how do you balance between these two situations कि यार यहाँ पे बहुत aggression चाहिए और यहाँ पे बहुत patience चाहिए?
होता है, रोल वाइज होता है, अंदाजा आने लगता है, राइट? एंड एक्चुअली लोग भी क्या होता है कि वंस यू लाइक टुडे वंस लाइक और नॉलेज बिल्ड होता है ना, सो आफ्टर अ पॉइंट नॉलेज एंड उसका विजडम बिकम्स योर स्पीड एग्जीक्यूटर. अभी आज हसल है वो, तो यू डू लॉट ऑफ हसल एंड यू ट्राई टू फिगर आउट व्हाट वर्क्स, बट वंस यू नो व्हाट वर्क्स you really capitalize on that and deliver growth using that.
So my efficiencies / productivity / gains from the hustle of the earlier time becomes your foundation for future.
और नॉलेज बिल्ड होता है सिस्टम में, राइट? कि क्या चलता है, कस्टमर को क्या चाहिए, मैं इसको किस रेगुलेशन के थ्रू किस तरह निकाल सकता हूँ, किधर बैठेगा ये, किधर रिस्क प्रोफाइल होगा, इसको किस तरह स्ट्रक्चर कर सकते हैं. एंड वो एक बार मतलब हम और दैट नॉलेज 1 year बैक से अभी हमारा 100x है, नेक्स्ट ईयर और 100x होगा, एंड दैट सम पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम दैट विल बी आवर काइंड ऑफ अ विनिंग राइट.
हमने डीप में घुस के एक प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व की है.
हाँ, एंड उससे नॉलेज आया कि अभी नेक्स्ट मेरे को डिलीवर करना है ना, तो मुझे बहुत ज्यादा हसल करके नहीं फिगर आउट होना है. मुझे फर्स्ट टाइम ही पता है कि ये इस तरह लॉन्च करना है, इस तरह डिलीवर करना है, इस तरह एजुकेट करना है, और ये हो जाएगा.
So the playbooks get established and then that can be replicated across.
Yes.
Fair enough. So supply being your current constraint and demand is already in place, your CACs are expected to come down. It's a matter of when you start paying attention to optimizing those numbers. So what's your Monday morning excitement का source कि आज इस week में क्या बड़ा करने वाला है, क्या सोचने वाला?
I think I spend a lot of time on hiring. And in general, matlab, when you mentioned, right, we are very focused on people. It kind of comes from my personal. I like talking to people. Like I like spending time and making sure my team is happy. Matlab, it is not like it is. Obviously, it helps in building good business. But even if it was not the output, I would still do the same. I want whoever is working.
You enjoy it.
And that's what actually focus aata, because I know a lot of founders who are good founders, but they don't really like talking to people, right? So if they had an option, they would hire all robots and get things done, right? Because their robots are not available, they have to hire people, right? So I'm generally very people focused. So for even problem, I'll think कि कौन ये अच्छे solve करेगा. Even if I have a problem on table, I'll think कि am I the right person? If not, who will solve this? That's how generally I work. So I spend a lot of time on hiring, talking to people, right? And then obviously making sure कि if my leadership is facing any problem,
So that would translate into a lot of thinking time about long-term future, short-term future, mid-term future. What is you?
Yeah, I'm not very I have a lot of time to think at least.
Daily operations is not exactly. You have 5 co-founders and you'll be 7 soon. So from a distribution of work perspective, there's enough bandwidth available at the leadership level, so to speak.
Yes, been very fortunate on that side, because a lot of things, especially people related and strategy related, we could think through well because I had a bandwidth. If we had just 2 co-founders, we had to look after a lot of things.
बहुत सारी opportunities में भी फंसना पड़ जाता. But 7 co-founders is kind of unusual. But yeah, we've spoken before that you've been actually careful about assembling this whole thing. So very fascinating.
It is not a friends group which has come together, right? It's a
Sure.
very
It's a
professional setup
carefully curated.
where everybody knows what position they are playing, what they bring to the table.
Fair enough. Okay. Team from the audience, do we have any questions at the point? That's a different tangential question, but do you want to take that, Ajinkya?
What are new digital onboarding trends for fintech for personal loan?
It's been a while since you've done this, probably.
Yeah, I think मतलब मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि in 10 years you will never go somewhere to take personal loan, not on even any app. You will take personal loan where you already exist, right? So it could be Cred, it could be Wint, it could be Zerodha, it could be Grow, whatever, right? तो वहां से ही मतलब
अच्छा,
स्टैंड
विंट भी
अलोन
लोन देने वाला है क्या फ्यूचर में?
हो
विंट
सकता है
माइट
मतलब
आल्सो स्टार्ट
10
गिविंग
साल बाद
लोन,
क्या
10
होगा
साल बाद क्या होता है पता नहीं.
5 साल में नहीं, बट 10 साल में पता नहीं. 5 साल 3-4 साल तो हमें पता है क्या करें. बट
Sure.
it's not Wint specific. I'm saying कि
Hmm.
the trend that I'm clearly seeing year on year and how we are moving कि standalone loan के लिए कुछ होगा नहीं. Somebody will already have all of your data and they will be the best suited and best convenient focus service also to give you loan.
Hmm. But on that one, do you have more audience questions? Because I have a couple more which are on the industry वाला side. Because this whole SME loan वाला thing जहाँ से आप शुरू किए थे कि यार 12% मिल सकता है इसमें, and that's why your similar asset. I mean, the asset classes you're creating are sort of similar in nature, where there is low risk profile but reasonable interest, ROE and sorts.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
what kind of asset profile are you creating?
ये सिमिलर मतलब थोड़ा एफडी से रिस्क तो ज्यादा रहेगा ही मतलब
Sure.
ऑब्वियसली वी आर वेरी क्लियर कि दीज आर नॉट रिप्लेसमेंट फॉर एफडी.
Hmm.
The risk is mitigated well. There is a risk, but
Sure.
the risk is mitigated well. It's not zero. And that's the point we operate on.
So because my simple contention was coming in from the arbitrage that exists in terms of what the deposit gets me and what the ultimate interest rate is available to. And there's a spread of between 6% cut deposit interest on an FD to a 16% personal loan rate across a bunch of equations. And despite that, there's a large population which is still unbanked. And credit cards still operate on a 36% annual interest rate. So what I was trying to understand was from the asset creation perspective, the availability of supply might be large, but you have a certain kind of filters to apply in terms of the risk profile as well as the mitigation ability. But is there, do you see at a industry level more efficiency coming in this space where discovery of investors and loan takers? I remember there was this 12% club that was created by, I think, Bharat Pay or somebody. And do you see that becoming reasonably large now?
Not in that format, but yes, it will become large. And I think we already have that kind of like already linkage. Like बैंक में एफडी करते लोग, बैंक एनबीएफसी को लोन देता है, एनबीएफसी आगे जाके
हाँ, but वो बहुत सारे कॉस्ट ऐड होते जाते हैं ना, पैडअप होता जाता है.
हाँ कॉस्ट ऐड होते हैं और उसमें ना मतलब कॉस्ट एक्चुअली बहुत ज्यादा नहीं है. सिस्टम अच्छा खासा इफिशिएंट है. इतना मतलब जितना पोर्ट्रे करते हैं ना टेक फाउंडर्स की बहुत इनफिशिएंट है, हम आके पूरा मचा देंगे, इतना नहीं है.
अच्छा.
कैपिटल के कंस्ट्रेंट्स है, जो रेगुलेटरी कंस्ट्रेंट है वो अच्छे हैं, वो सॉल्व करना चाहिए, राइट?
Could
मतलब
you elaborate on this for a minute? मतलब when you say capital constraints, you mean what? Banks एक दिशा में इतना ही पैसा लगा सकता है type something.
if you have to give, let's say if you have NBFC, generally speaking, if you have to give 100 rupee loan, 20 rupees should come from your equity. 15 is minimum requirement from a regulator, and generally
Sure.
20-25 होता है. तो for these growth इक्विटी लगती है और वो इक्विटी टैक्स से सॉल्व नहीं होती, वो इक्विटी आती है तो डाइल्यूशन होता है.
Somebody to put.
तो ये कंस्ट्रेंट है.
अगर वहाँ कंस्ट्रेंट है, अदरवाइज एफिशिएंसी बुरी नहीं थी. मतलब द कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल टू अ रिटेल पर्सनल लोन गाय शुड नॉट बी सो क्रेजी. वो 12-14% का नंबर अभी भी एग्जिस्ट करता है, राइट?
हाँ 12-14 का करता है, करना भी चाहिए. मतलब अगर आप 6% में एफडी कोई लेता है, उसको 25% तो उनको जीसेक में डालना पड़ता है, 20-25%. So they don't earn anything on that.
Sure.
So बाकी है प्लस कॉस्ट ऑफ इक्विटी है, राइट? इक्विटी को रिटर्न देना है, प्लस कॉस्ट ऑफ ऑप्स है. ऑब्वियसली डिजिटल कर करके सॉल्व होगी बहुत सारी चीजें. मतलब ऐसा नहीं
बढ़ना चाहिए ना,
बढ़ेगा, बट वो 14 का 7 नहीं होने वाला, 14 का 12 होगा.
Fair enough.
वो एक अनरियलिस्टिक एक्सपेक्टेशन हो, and obviously founders have a lot to
That's what tech founders keep I'm assuming a bunch of your angels might have promised similar things in their decks and to their customer ads also.
yes कि दुनिया बदल देंगे टेक से टेक मतलब टेक yes but it's
With due
enabler.
respect, but it has its limitations.
हाँ.
Awesome. So, well, this is a very interesting conversation, Ajinkya. My list of questions had finished in 30, so some of this was more spontaneous and very exciting nonetheless. I guess we don't have more audience questions, so if we do get some, we'll pass across on the email and we'll try and take them offline. Very exciting to have you on board. Thank you so much.
Thank you Ankur, thank you for having me.
Bye bye.